YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for a...
This show is brought to you by BetUS.com. 125% off your first 3 deposits, 30 years experience, secure site, wagering for all sports, including during the games and futures. SeatGeek provides you the best prices on sports and music events, game tickets, and concerts. Use NSS promo code to get $20 off your first ticket. Keep using the NSS promo code when purchasing tickets for great deals in the future. In Fanatics at nessp.info for your favorite teams, sportswear. Click on the link, and while you're there, check out our national streaming sports merchandise. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Oh, I got full headshots out there now, Jack. My big head and your big head are up there. I'll fix that in a minute. I don't want to scare anybody away.
I like that. I kind of like the new look.
You like that? You like that? All right.
Yeah. It's not bad.
I'll keep it up for a little while until Keith Angle comes in, which he'll be in shortly, folks. Keith Angle from TGI Sports. You know, before I get going, you see that big that tag up in the right hand side. I'll talk a little about SeatGeek because I really haven't been talking about them enough. I don't think. You know, SeatGeek is a premier ticket agency. My sister worked not for SeatGeek but another one that a huge ticket outlet, and even her boss at SeatGeek was the one that was really coming up. It was going to be a big player, and it has been, Jack. I mean, where can you go where you can get tickets to, you know, a sporting event or a music event? You can go watch your games. You go see the Jets game. You get tickets to that. You can get tickets to a boxing match. You can get tickets to a hockey game. You can get tickets to a concert if you like Billy Joel or you like big band, whatever you like. SeatGeek will provide them to you. And if you use the NSS promo code in the beginning, you get $20 off. And you continue using this when you leave and you go to your cart and you're ready to get your tickets. You get that NSS promo code again, and guess what? You get the best deals available as you continue buying these great tickets to these great events. Anyway, folks, check them out. Right there is the promo code, the QR code. All you got to do is scan that with your mobile phone, and you're in. So let's bring in Keith Angle after I promote us 100%, and we're going to change that because I like it when we have our backing behind us too. I feel almost naked, Keith, when I don't have a backing. You know what I'm saying? Keith heard naked and he right up and he's like, "How you doing?"
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing okay. And good morning to Rick. Rick Sherlock, one of the loyalist fan for National Streaming Sports. So he even got a shirt, Keith. He got a shirt.
I heard.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah. So I mean, we gotta give our loyal fans something. So let's get into sports. Of course, last night, big game. me and Keith picked this right, Jack. We both took Cincinnati with the points. He and I also thought that maybe they might even win this game. And last night, guys, 35-34, Baltimore edges them out. Cincinnati jumps out fast to a 21-7 lead. There's a fumble that kind of turns the tide, and the Ravens get back into it. Cincinnati comes back to it. It was like a heavyweight fight, Jack. I mean, they were trading punches, both coming back at each other. And let's see, Lamar ended up with 290 yards, 4 touchdowns. Henry rushed for 68 yards in a TD. Listen, Burrows, 428 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jamar Chase. I mean, I think it's like a third game he's had this kind of game where he's caught reception yards for over 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, I'll start with you, Keith. I mean, great game, and we'll get to that 2-point conversion and maybe some missed calls here in a minute. But, I mean, this is the type of game. It was like a playoff game.
Agreed. Cincinnati got off to a really quick start here, and Baltimore fought back. Lamar Jackson, look, he's good. He's good in these games. He's great in these games in a regular season. He needs to obviously get it going in the playoffs the same way. But I think it was pretty much what I expected. We talked about it on Wednesday night. As we pointed out to those who didn't think the same way we did, they weren't playing against Bo Nix and whatever receivers he's got to throw to. He's playing against 2 of the best at their position in the game. And I thought it would be a lot of points scored, and there were, and it was a fun game. And again, I'm going to stay consistent as far as the 2-point conversion goes. 100% behind the call. You got momentum. You hadn't stopped Jackson at about 5 drives. There's no reason to think you're going to get another chance to score. So,
and keep in mind, Todd Bowles was criticized, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer coach, for kicking the extra point against the Chiefs last Monday and sending it into overtime. So if anyone's going to criticize Cincy for going for the 2-point conversion, it's totally hypocritical.
Absolutely. I said, I think it was on Wednesday night show. I don't know what, I think it was Wednesday night we talked about it, Mac. I backed that decision. I thought that was the right call as well. So I'm going to be consistent in this.
Well, I guess you can call me hypocritical then, because I think it depends. It's unique to every game. If Cincinnati gets the ball in the second half, Baltimore couldn't stop Cincinnati either. So Cincinnati gets the ball, ties the game, drives down, throws a touchdown. Cincinnati wins that game. So,
but you're relying on a coin flip. You're relying on a coin flip.
I understand that, but I'm still saying, Keith. I mean, if I'm Cincinnati, I feel a lot more comfortable with Jamar Chase and Burrows than I do with Baker Mayfield and a receiving core that's okay.
If the NFL rules were different and you were going to touch the football no matter what, then obviously this call is not going to happen as nearly as often. And I kind of like the rules the way they are, because I like guys that will go for this. I want the win right now. I got momentum. I'm not going to risk losing it. And look at, it didn't work out.
Jack, I'm not killing the guy. I'm not killing the guy for going for it, because, if the game's over then. I mean, I understand you're playing a away team. You're playing at their home, and if you can get out of there with a win without going and playing extra time, I can understand that too.
Yeah, and if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, just think of this. Right now at this moment, if I told you that they're one of the best teams in football at this moment, ignore their record, you can make a good argument for that, but there's a good chance they don't make the playoffs. They have 7 games left. They virtually have to go 6-1. Not even isn't going to guarantee them a playoff spot. 6-1, practically. They're 4-6. Those early season losses, I mean, they really come back to haunt you.
I agree with that.
They do.
So let's talk a little bit about the non-calls. And I was talking to Jack Keith earlier, and I said, it looks to me, and this is the only way I can explain all these non-calls at the end of the game, the 2-point conversion, there could have been 3 different penalties called. The guy looked like he tackled the end before he caught the ball. They grabbed the tight end, actually almost, he kind of flopped, but they grab him, so it was holding. And then they hit Burrows in the face. Now, I think there's a concerted effort by the officials to let him play at the end. that's the only way I can explain it with, Cincinnati not getting that interference call or San Francisco not getting that interference call, whatever team that was. It might have been Kansas City. But anyway, that's the only way I can explain it. I think they're talking amongst each other that at the end of the half or the end of the game, they're going to let them play. They're not going to make a call that costs the other team the game. I think that's what they're doing.
I think Ryan Fitzpatrick said it in the post game. He said if there was any other play in the game, it would have been a penalty. But at that point, they weren't going to let the game be decided on that. And when you look at it, again, penalties are penalties. And I know Tony Gonzalez was arguing with him about it at the end of the game. Penalties are penalties. It's in the rule book. You should call it. None of them really affected the outcome of the play. I mean, one of the flags was away from the throw. The face mask, the guy was well after the throw was made. But and look, there's been some atrocious officiating. To me, penalties should be penalties whenever they occur. But at the same time, we know I subscribe to the theory: don't let officials beat you. So that does not mean bad calls or missed calls do not happen. So you may be right, though, Mac. I think there might be a concerted effort to say don't let the officials determine the outcome of these games.
I mean, can you imagine a Baltimore fans? I mean, that face mask, he was trying to block the ball. He came down. It's not like he grabbed his face mask.
No.
And so, I mean, can you imagine a Baltimore fans if they called that and then they lined up and got a touchdown? You're going to hear all different from the different fan bases. So I think that's what's going on. We'll see. So, Pat, the Patriots are playing the Chicago. This will be the second matchup for Caleb Williams against one of the top three quarterbacks that we're taking, right? So, I mean, this is pretty interesting when you got Caleb Williams taking the field and you have Drake May taking the field. And, they don't play against each other. We know that. They play against the other team's defense. But there's still going to be some kind of, not a rivalry, but there's going to be a competition between, I think, both of them.
Oh, I think absolutely. And both are playing. Look at Drake May. I was an opponent of putting Drake May in this early behind that offensive line, but he's played some exciting football. He runs the ball very well. You got to learn to slide, or he's going to get hurt badly. Even last week, he ran for over 100 yards, but he had way too many plays. He was diving head first, and his sliding is still a work in progress for him. But he's added a level of excitement to Patriot games that, is it more enjoyable for me to watch? Yes. Are we going to win more games? Obviously, probably not. But this matchup is fun because I think Caleb Williams and Drake May and Daniels has been great, but I think they're the best two quarterbacks in this draft, even though I didn't want the guy. I think it'll be exciting.
Name three guys, Keith. Which are the best two?
I like May and Williams.
Okay, but when Mac mentioned about a rivalry, I don't think there's a big rivalry because the Bears had a decision between Williams and Daniels. They were really 1-2, the consensus. I mean, they could look back, Bear fans, and say, well, we could have taken Drake May, but if they didn't take Caleb Williams, they would have taken Jaden Daniels. So I think that takes a little lust off this. Plus, the plan all along was for Drake May to be a backup for at least a good part of the year. They put him in a little earlier than anticipated. So I don't think there's quite that rivalry there. But I will agree with this. If Williams has a terrible game, let's say he throws 4 interceptions and Drake May shines, there'll be a little talk.
There will be some. Obviously, there's going to be that all through their careers, right? And so, especially if one of them really separates from the other three, you're going to have that kind of talk, just like you had going back forever, right? Think about 1983, right? And where Dan Marino went and stuff like that. So
but Josh Allen came out the year Sam Darnold came out. No one says, well, the Jets could have had Josh Allen because he wasn't a consensus pick when they moved up to number 3.
No.
He went, I think, number 9 eventually to Buffalo.
Yeah. Well, you get it with Mahomes because a lot of teams passed on him that could have used him. In fact, and Trubisky goes in that draft before him. Yeah.
Deshaun Watson, too.
To piggyback what he's saying, I mean, when it comes to the Hall of Fame right now, you've got 3 possibles from the 2004 class. that could get in, right? You got Eli, you got Rosenberger, you got Rivers. And there are comparisons between the three. Well, Big Ben, Eli won 2 Super Bowls. Big Ben maybe was a better quarterback overall. Rivers threw for more yards than both of them, I think. So, I mean, you're going to draw them comparisons as you go through your career, and especially when it comes to the possibility of getting the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. No, you will, Mac. No, I agree with that. But no one is saying, well, the Giants should have taken Big Ben, because consensus-wise, Eli was really the guy. And the San Diego Chargers would have taken Eli number 1 ahead of Philip Rivers, and actually did, and traded his rights. People forget that. Don't make that comparison, I agree. But sometimes it's on the cusp who you should take 1, 2, and it's hard to believe with Manning, Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. That was like a decision time. On reflection, you're saying like, what? But the Colts had a big decision. It wasn't an easy decision at the time.
That was almost a coin flip too. Yeah, that obviously would have had great repercussions.
Wow! Can you imagine?
What would have been worse? Portland passing on Michael Jordan, or Indy taking Ryan Leaf and passing on Peyton Manning? That's a good question. Which would have had more of a negative impact on the franchise?
That's a good topic for your Saturday history show, right? To me, wow. Michael Jordan's a no-brainer there in that one comparison. But
I don't know. I mean, you imagine Ryan Leaf on the Colts, and where did Ryan Leaf go to? The Chargers. So imagine Peyton Manning on the Chargers. I don't know.
Well, the Bulls have zero championships at this point.
That trumps everything, Keith. It sure does. Good morning to Daniel Berry, Sports Highlights. Glad you came in this morning, Daniel. Appreciate you. So, we saw a couple coaches get cut right now. Salah, of course, was fired. The Saints head coach fired. Who would be your next, say, 2 or 3 coaches you think that may not even make it to the end of the year, guys? I know a lot of owners don't like doing it. GMs don't like doing it. But if you had to project 2 or 3 more coaches that might get fired, who would be your picks?
I can't 2 or 3. One I could see possibly, but he was given a vote of confidence, Doug Peterson at Jacksonville. But outside of him, I just don't see anyone being let go this season. As the season goes along, I mean, what good would it do, and what are the chances? And is any franchise that's totally fed up with their coaches at this point?
I think there's a couple of guys that need to be worried. Again, the vote of confidence for Peterson is what it is. We've seen those types of things before. I still think he's in a lot of trouble. I think Zach Taylor in Cincinnati should watch his back if this season, the second half of the season, really goes in the toilet for the Bengals. They could look to make a move. I don't think it'll happen.
You mean before the season's over, Mac is saying?
Before the season's over?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
With that in mind, if they've given Peterson a vote of confidence, he probably won't get fired. Pierce won't get fired during the season, although I think in retrospect, it's a bad hire. Probably everybody's safe. Who knows about Mike McCarthy, but Jerry Jones doesn't really fire head coaches, as we know, till they have really worn out their welcome. So probably nobody. Stefanski, I mean, what's going on in Cleveland is not his fault in my mind. That they put him in a bad situation, no-win situation up there. I think everybody's probably safe if we're only talking about the rest of the regular season.
I think a move or 2 will be made. And my top candidate is Antonio Pierce. You mentioned. I think if he loses another game, he might be gone. I mean, he's lost that locker room, and that's what I'm judging this off. Have you lost the locker room? I mean, if they're still playing hard and still playing good for you, then maybe you last the end of the season. Maybe let's give you another season. But
they could have fired him when they fired his offensive staff. They could have fired him with them, clean house completely. But the idea they didn't fire him indicates that he's going to, stagger to the finish line the end of the season.
And it's ironic. If he's lost that locker room, he got the job because he won the locker room. And that's the only reason. I mean, that's the danger. We talk about it, or I talk about it. The danger of interim coaches is they come in and they have some success and players like them. Then it becomes hard to move on or take a different choice. And that's what happened to the Raiders here. If he's lost that locker room, it's ironic because just 9 months ago, he got the job because of it.
Yeah, Rick mentions that Matt Eberflus, the back coach here. He's a possibility if anyone's to be let go.
He is. I think he'll last the season though, and then they might make a move. But that's a good pick too.
I think so too. I think McCarthy. You mentioned Jerry Jones stays with coaches, but it's a different pressure than I think it was before. I mean, he's another one who may have lost the locker room. Dak is down. We'll see what Cooper Rush does for him. And I think my head coach Brian, if I'm the owner of the Giants, listen. I mean, if you don't beat the Panthers, Sunday, I don't want you anymore. You got to be.
Get patient. Don't wait to the end of the season. One thing, firing a coach oftentimes backfires on owners, because the public then turns and notices the owner and blames him, like Woody Johnson. He was slipping under the radar when the Jets were losing. As soon as he fired Robert Saleh, people started paying attention to Woody Johnson. You're the problem. Same thing with Jerry Jones. If he fired McCarthy, everyone's going to turn on Jerry Jones as being the problem. It's just going to make the situation worse for the owner, at least public relations wise.
Yeah, and the Giants are paid. They don't. I don't remember them firing a coach during the middle of the season. They may have, but I don't. The Maras not very often.
No, the Maras are going to want to see how the Giants play the rest of the year. Yeah. If they're competitive, win a couple of games, are playing hard, they might run it back with Shine as the GM, DeBala as the coach. But if they're non-competitive, then they might make a change. The Maras are very reluctant to make changes. They don't do it unless they really absolutely have to.
Yeah. And by the way, again, you fire a coach, you run into the danger of an Antonio Pierce stepping in, and now you've got a guy you might be stuck with that you really don't want.
You don't fall into the interim coach trap because they have some success during the year. It is not their job. People don't understand that. It is not their job. Even though they turn things around to an extent, it's a mistake to look at them as a long-term, solution. Except in certain cases with Rick Bisaccia, the Raider coach, who was the interim coach, he really had them playing great, and they made the playoffs. And he was kind of like a little bit of an exception to the rule, yet they moved on from him.
Talking about Dabo and what the GM is it Stein? I can't remember. Shine. Ben Shine. I think they may get a chance to run this back again because this isn't the team they really tried to put together in the offseason. They were trying to get a quarterback right up until, right through the draft, and they weren't able to move up.
They could have gotten Penix. They could have gotten McCarthy. They could have gotten Nix.
Yeah.
They had 3 of them there.
That's not the guys that they wanted. The guys they wanted, they tried to go get Daniels, they tried to go get May, and they could not do it. And that's when they decided they were all in on Daniel Jones.
Let me ask, is Robert Kraft, he's an older guy, he's in his 80s now. If Gerard Mayo isn't getting it done, I mean, by next season, his job, could very well be in jeopardy. Robert Kraft is only going to have so much patience. So is he going to make changes to the front office and basically take away a little of Mayo's responsibility?
Well, he doesn't have a lot of responsibility in the front office like Belichick did, obviously. But I don't think this will be a one-and-done situation. I don't think Kraft is going to go that way. This team, if they play better, less penalties, less stupid mistakes, right, and that are obviously coaching issues in my mind, then there won't be any issue with him coming back, but things have got to get better next year. And look at the front office, to your point, Jack, has got to put better players on that roster. There's just not enough good players on this team on either side of the football.
That's true. And just for the record, listen, the Giants, do you think the Giants are patient? They're not. They fired at least 4 coaches I know in midseason. McAdoo was one. Ray Hanley was one, Arnsvarger was one, and I think Joe Judge started.
Well, you're going back a while to a couple of them, but a couple of the others, they had no choice. Joe Judge was a disaster. When you have 3rd and 9 and you're trying to quarterback sneak, I mean, come on.
Listen,
doesn't get worse than that. McAdoo is kind of a problem in a way. You have one good year, but
the way the ball is calling plays right now, Jack, I don't know. He's kind of a disaster right now too. So anyway, interesting stuff. So let's get to Keith's picks, and of course, this is brought to you by Bet Us. Listen, all you got to do, go to that QR code, scan it, or you can go to nessp.info and get all the different things you can bet on with Bet Us, and bet along with Keith, bet against him, whatever you think is right. And for the record, I am still undefeated on Thursday night, just to let you all know. So anyway, Keith, we've got a few games that I want you to take a look at. Michigan's going against Indiana. A lot of people think Indiana's underrated. We'll find out as they go along. Michigan getting 13.5 points at Indiana. Can Indiana stop that running game in Michigan?
Indiana's been beating everybody by tons, pretty much, and underrated. No longer are they underrated. They're 8th in the first. I think number 8 in the first playoff poll. They started the season outside of the top 25. They're playing this game at home. At this game, we're in Michigan. I think I'd give Michigan a puncher's chance, but Indiana's playing really great football. Signetti is probably the most significant hire in this last round of coaching hires in college football. And he said when he gets there, they asked him expectations, and he said, "I win. Google me." And he's been right on target. This is a fun team to watch, and their quarterback has probably moved into at least the conversation in the Heisman race. Probably not the top tier of it, but he's moved into the conversation in the last few weeks. So it's a fun team to watch. I like Indiana and get the points here.
Real quick question, because I don't follow Indiana really. Have they played an SEC team yet?
I do not believe they have. Their out of conference schedule is not what one of the powers are. Not necessarily because of their fault, but not everybody's looking to schedule Indiana, on their schedule. So
okay,
but no, they have not played an SEC team.
Oregon. I thought this is. At first I thought this was like a misprint. Oregon is only given Ole Miss 2.5 points. Keith.
That can't be right. Who they play? They're not playing Ole Miss. Well, let me check the schedule here. Oregon. Where are you, Oregon? They are playing. By the way, Georgia's playing Ole Miss, one of the big games of the week. So,
Georgia's playing them. Okay.
Oregon's playing Maryland. It's a 25-point game.
There you go. 2.5, 25, Maryland. Well, instead of that game.
If you're on the Ole Miss game, Georgia is a 2.5-point favorite at Ole Miss. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Georgia, do you think that's a misprint?
No, it's listen. Mississippi was one of the darlings of the press early in the year. Lane Kiffin has kind of fallen into James Franklin territory where he can't beat top 10 teams. I think he's like 1-10, 1-11 against top 10 teams. He's got to be Georgia or Kentucky. This is similar to Penn State and Franklin. They can't beat Ohio State and Michigan. This is Lane Kiffin's chance to get over that hump. He's getting 2.5 at home. Jackson Dart's playing great at quarterback. They run up 63 against Arkansas last week, who obviously is not Georgia. But Georgia's not Georgia right now. They're 3rd in the country, but this isn't the Georgia team you're used to watching the last 5 years. They make a lot of mistakes. They put themselves in the hole early in the game. They've got one of the better quarterbacks in football, but he's led some big comebacks, but because he's put them in a hole early in the game. I like the points at home with Ole Miss here. I think they get over the hump. And this is a do or die. They're out of the playoff race if they lose here.
If they lose.
Yeah. Ole Miss
Alabama, number 11 against LSU, number 14. Alabama is given LSU 3 at home. I mean, is this the same thing for LSU? Do or die? Do they got to win this to keep going on?
This could be an elimination game for both these teams, probably. I would say whoever loses is probably at least on the peripheral, if not out of the playoff chase. I like LSU getting points at home here. James Martin ought to like me this week. I haven't picked his team very often this year. Playing at night in the Swamp, I think it's a great place for LSU to beat. And this is not a great Alabama team. DeBoer's a really good coach, a good replacement for Saban, but this is not your classic Alabama team either. As we've seen, they've been very up and down this year. I'll take LSU with points at home.
You mentioned the rankings, and I took a real quick look at them. Is Missouri overrated, Keith? They're number 24 right now. I mean, they got one win versus Vandy, I think is their biggest win.
Yeah, this team was ranked. This was another team that was ranked really high. They had top 10 early in the year. They've thrown up some stinkers. They've had games at home against teams like Boston College that they just got by, and then they've gotten beat by like 3-4, at least 3 touchdowns in the SEC 3 times this year. And this is a team, and their quarterback's hurt. There's some question whether he'll play this week. It's one of the most disappointing teams probably in college football this year. And I wouldn't doubt that they fall out of this top 25 ranking before the season's out.
And, of course, I got to talk about Penn State being number 6. I don't know what makes them number 6, when you're going to lose to Ohio State and you just can't beat the other teams in the Big Ten, the big teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they're ranked ahead of, say, Tennessee, Indiana. BYU is undefeated, one of the big stories. Indiana and BYU were probably the 2 big, and SMU are the biggest surprises on a positive side. This year in college football, for sure.
All right, Keith, you got a co-host you ready to bring in, or what do you got?
No.
Oh my God! Oh, that is
hello.
This
is my co-picker today. Say hi, Scarlett. Say hi. Go like this. Hi,
Scarlett. Oh, that's too much cuteness for the morning show.
Is she a Patriot fan?
Oh, she will be. I can tell you that. Go see Grandma. Go see Mama.
Oh, that's too cute. Oh my God!
Hang on 1 second. I got to tangle up in my.
Go ahead. Don't hurt.
Bye.
Please don't hurt.
I'll see you in a little bit.
Our ratings just went through the roof. You got to bring.
Oh God! When I brought her on my show, it was the highest rated show I've had in history.
Just thinking now, something came into my head. When young people become fans, it's good to reflect how good was their team when they were young and first became a fan. Because I know the Yankees were winners when I first became a fan when I was very young. When you guys first became fans, were the teams good? Were they bad? The New York Mets, for example, if you're a Met fan when they first started, an older person, they were the lovable losers. Maybe that was the appeal. I mean, what kind of grabs you when you're young?
I've had to explain this a lot in my life because I often wear Yankee and Patriot apparel together, and people don't understand it. In fact, I remember Mac did an interview with me not long ago, and we talked about this. When I was a kid, 9 years old, 1969, the Jets just won a Super Bowl. All my other friends, my friends were all Jet fans or Giant fans because their dads were, or they had to be, or whatever. And I went to a game in Foxborough with a friend of mine and his dad and another father, and I fell in love with the Patriots in 1970, and they were not good. They were not good for a lot of years. We had season tickets through the 80s, and they went to a Super Bowl, but most of those years they weren't good. We sat through a 1-15 season, so there's no bandwagon jumping here. Yankees, a similar story. I became a Yankee fan because the Mets just won a World Series, and all my friends were Met fans, and the Yankees hadn't been good for quite a while by 1969 and 70. So that's why I gravitated. I was a bit of a nonconformist even when I was just 8 or 9, 10 years old. So, and there's been a lot of good years and a lot of bad years in both situations.
Yeah, my dad's from New York, Brooklyn, and he wasn't a Dodger fan. He was a Yankee fan. Everybody around him was a Dodger fan. And he was a Yankee fan, and Giant fan, all New York fans, really. They like football and baseball, but of course, I carry on. I take the Knicks and the Rangers if I'm going to vote for anybody in hockey. So, I mean, I'm just all New York, and it's just that's the way it is.
I'm all New York except for Patriots, which is kind of a weird thing, I know, but.
Well, you never know how you're going to think. It just clicks. I was a Brooklyn guy, okay? I lived in Brooklyn the first 30 years of my life. So now the Brooklyn Cyclones come into existence, minor league baseball team, beautiful new stadium. I'm certain I'm going to be a Brooklyn Cyclone fan. I go to their first game, all Cyclones. As a Brooklyn Cyclone fan, they're playing the Staten Island Yankees. I find myself rooting for the Staten Island Yankees. Like I entered the stadium as a Cyclone fan, and I left as a Staten Island Yankee fan because they were a Yankee affiliate team. Sure. And I guess they were so deeply ingrained being a Yankee fan. They won out over Brooklyn.
I know a lot of people that are Red Sox and Giant fans too. Because the Patriots weren't, around as long as the Giants. So
you get that Connecticut, that area where you are. It's kind of you're in between the two, and it's kind of a mix.
Well, in New York, it's combos. Usually, it's a Yankee and Giant fan. I'm different. I'm a Jet fan, and I'm a Yankee fan. So usually, you have, it'll be Jets and Mets, Giants and Yankees paired off.
I can tell you when we had our season tickets in the 80s, I knew about, besides me and my buddy who had the tickets, I knew about 4 Patriot fans in upstate New York. Now they're everywhere, but they're starting to disappear again quickly as well.
Yeah. There are them people. I mean, to me, I don't care. I wear my Giants stuff with pride, whether I'm 1-15 or 1-16.
Not with you. True to my school. I'm always true to my school.
The Patriot fan base now, they should be a case study because the Patriots won so much for 2 decades. They were spoiled, 6 Super Bowl victories. They went to 9 Super Bowls. So even if they don't win a game for the next decade, the fans should have enough to hold them over. So what would they have rather had? What would they have rather had? Been in the mix the next decade for the championships and not had as much success as they had the 2 decades before. I think once you win 1 championship, it should hold you over the next few years at least.
It'll hold me over for a long time, but this is a fickle fan base. I mean, when we were going to games, they went to a Super Bowl, and the next year, some of the games, the stadium was half full.
Yeah.
So, it's a very fickle fan base.
And if you're going to go back 20 years, you got a lot of new fans coming in too, and
that's the thing too. A lot of those fickle people maybe are gone, and like me, they'll be passed on before long. But there's a lot of younger kids, like my stepson. He doesn't know, they don't know anything but winning, right? That's all they know. Right. So it'll be interesting to Jack's point too. Still, how do they react, right? To not winning now for who knows how long it'll be, but I hope it wasn't as long as the first time. That was 40 years.
Don't worry, the Jets are worse off than you, and there's Jack sitting there proud to be a Jet fan. So, and I love that.
God bless him. I do too. I like people, as you said, who stick by their team through thick and thin.
Yeah. Me too.
Doesn't mean I love what they do all the time.
I think it's a question of having hope each season. I mean, if you have a team that you absolutely know is going to have a dreadful season, it's hard being a fan. But if you have hope, even with the Jets this year, a lot of people are picking them to win the AFC East. So there was hope going into the year. Now we're at a point they're 3-6. It's you take it a week at a time. You're not as enthusiastic anymore. But, at least at this moment.
I think it depends, too, a little on the situation. If you ask Rick Sherlock, who I know very well, he's a little bit older than me. He's been a Viking fan his entire life. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee if you said, we'll give you a Super Bowl this year, but you're going to finish last the next 10 years, he'd take the Super Bowl in a heartbeat.
Super Bowl victory, not just
win. A win. Yeah, a win.
Win the Super Bowl. Yeah.
They got a lot of losses, so.
The Vikings are one of the teams since the Super Bowl came into existence. They haven't won it.
Yeah. It's I love guys who'll stand there and fight you. I'll even give the Cowboys fans some credit. I mean, if you're still a Cowboy fan after all this stuff you've been through, since 1994, and you're still hanging in there, more power to you. I mean,
yeah. But the Cowboys were the last 3 years they were 12-5 each year. Come on, I mean that's a lot of hope. They just fizzled out, during that playoff game.
For some franchises, that's not enough though, and you got a history of winning. Like as a Yankee fan, I'm sorry, getting to a World Series once, twice every 25 years isn't enough for me.
Yeah. Just very quickly. I mean, is it okay, Mac? I just throw this by you, Keith. The Juan Soto situation. This is a take back to when we talked about Aaron Judge. I'm a big believer. The Yankees should have just contacted Scott Boras and said, "This is our best offer." Put their very top offer on the table, which would be a massive offer, and say, "Look, if it's not good enough, you could call us later, check back with us, but we're going to look to sign other free agents, and the money might not be there." We're assuming he's not going to sign with us. If he's really serious, I mean, offer him whatever. Offer him $650 or whatever you were going to offer him. Yep. I have no clue what their final offer is going to be, but they have to put it on the table immediately. No playing around, not the same mistake they made with Judge. And then they're going to maybe up it later on. And Scott Boras would maybe, more likely than not, the answer, he wouldn't take it, but maybe would see with Juan Soto, we could make a little more with another team, but is it worth it to you, an extra $50 million? Okay, is that the difference maker? Yeah. 625 or 675 or something like that. But they're not doing it. They're waiting, and I don't think he's coming back to the Yankees.
I don't either, and I agree with you 100%. I've said on my show the exact same thing. They should put their best offer out there because there's a lot of work to do on this roster, a lot of work, and you can't wait around to see what they're going to do with Soto. And when it comes to the stupid money we're talking about, right? If you find out if a guy really wants to play on your team, if he just moves on for $25 million when we're talking about, over $500 million.
Yeah.
So. And Mac, I think
I read
about he talked about his free agency. That's a couple hours after they lost, so makes you wonder about guys what their priorities are.
I think he's taking direction from Scott Boras. He's playing hard to get, but the problem is if Soto wants to be a Yankee bad enough, he can maybe work it out. Listen. I wouldn't take $100 million less to play for the Yankees. Don't give me. I don't want to hear any of the nonsense. Well, if you want to be a Yankee bad enough, you do it. I mean, he doesn't have the Yankee. He didn't come up in the system. No, I wouldn't do that. No way would I do that. That's a little too much already. But some guys would leave some money on the table. You look the difference between $600 and $650. To play for one team, and maybe have a couple of opt-outs to maybe make the money up.
No opt-outs. No, I'm giving a guy $600 or $700 million. He's not getting any opt-outs. I can tell you right now.
Well, that's if you're matching any other team's offer. Then it's no opt-outs. If part of getting him to sign, you might have to offer him like an opt-out or two.
You got to remember.
I'm okay with that if that's what it takes to get him signed.
You got to remember 650, let's just say $650 million is like $700 million somewhere else because you're going to make a boatload in endorsements and whatnot being in the biggest media market in the country. So
it doesn't matter now where you play as far as endorsements go.
It sure does.
Social media. Look at LeBron.
If you're playing in Kansas, he's playing in LA. He's playing in LA. He played in Miami.
I mean, Michael Jordan played in Chicago.
That's a huge market. Huge market. You can't tell me a Juan Soto or anybody is going to get as much endorsement money playing for the Royals as he is for the Yankees or the Dodgers. There's no way.
Well, I mean, from what I understood, the Yankees have had a meeting with Soto. I haven't heard anything. What meeting? But he is going to talk to the Mets. I imagine he's going to talk to the Dodgers. I imagine he's going to talk to every team that's got a shot at going to the World Series. I mean,
and that's
to me,
right.
this is all.
That's good. But
yeah.
Jack's right. Let's get to work on fixing the rest of this roster. And if there's money left when they come back to us, then we'll talk.
Yeah. And let's not forget the back end of these deals. Soto's going to want a good 13 years, maybe 14 years, but let's say 13 years. He's 26. He's going to be great the next few years. But once he gets to year 9 of that contract, is it going to make all that sense anymore, for what you're going to be paying him? No one ever looks at the back end of a contract. They look at the first few years of it. Listen, I may have been wrong about the Francisco Lindor contract, but I put it down the 10-year deal, 11-year deal he signed. But keep in mind, we're only a few years into that Lindor contract. And I said, look, the guy's going to be very good maybe the first 5-6 years. What's he going to be the last few years? Same with Francisco Lindor, it remains to be seen, even though at this point it looks like I was wrong in what I said about it.
I do think the teams look at the back end and they know they're not going to get the value at the back end. The fans look at it differently. They go, blah, they don't look at it the same way. I guarantee the teams know they're not going to get the same value in year, 13 of a Soto contract as year 1 through 7, so let's say.
No, Brian Cashman always looks at the back end.
Get worried.
Really
let me be honest about Juan Soto. Juan Soto is a great hitter. There's no doubt about it. Fielding, though, he's not. He's
not a great base runner. He's not a great fielder.
No, he's okay.
No, he's not. He made a lot of errors, Jack, in the World Series. He made quite a few errors through the playoffs. He likes to catch the ball with one hand instead of two hands.
How come he was nominated for the Golden Glove?
I don't care what he was nominated for. I'm telling you what I saw. And, he makes dives when he shouldn't be making dives. He doesn't play the wall right. I had a lot of problems with the way Soto played right field. He cost us a few runs during the series.
They weren't all errors because they don't get registered as errors. But the Yankees, you just look at the outfield play for the Dodgers compared to the Yankees in the World Series. That was one of the big factors to me in this whole series was the Dodgers made plays that held the Yankees to singles instead of doubles and maybe doubles instead of triples. But the Yankees, everybody runs on the Yankees, everybody, because they don't play the balls. They don't know how to play the right kind of defense in the outfield.
Fideo played really good defensively, but Fideo played really good. He made some really good, nice catches.
I'm just telling you, I saw the Dodgers take a lot of extra bases that the Yankees were not taking in that series. So
use two hands. Why do you get out catch? I don't understand. Why
I'm not even talking about dropping fly balls. I'm just talking about playing the walls, as you said.
He makes me nervous, Keith, because it's like he sticks it up there and he's like, "Whoop!" It's like, come on, dude.
I watch video of Mookie Betts in practice before game 4, whatever the first game was in New York, playing balls in the corner off the wall.
Yeah,
I saw him hold a couple of guys to singles that would have been doubles in other cases off the wall.
Georgia outfield defense was outstanding. They were outstanding.
So let's get to a little NBA news. There were a few games last night. Minnesota beat Chicago 135-119. Portland loses to San Antonio 118-105. And Milwaukee beats Utah 123-100. Listen, the San Antonio Spurs, I think, are for real. They're not going to championship, but they're definitely in the playoffs. There's no doubt about it with the team they have right now, led by the Greek Freak. And another thing, Milwaukee comes up with a win after they have a closed-door meeting with Doc Rivers, especially Giannis was in there, and I think they had, a few other players, key players with them. But I guess they told Doc Rivers to sit down, shut up, and stop trying to coach because you have no friggin' idea what you're doing as a coach. I'm not sure what was said, but it's interesting. They came out and
you have to have Pags on to give his view on Doc Rivers on this instead of us.
We should, but anyway, Milwaukee finally wins another game. They're out to the worst start in history. There have been rumors that if something don't happen this year, that Giannis might be wanting to leave Milwaukee. So I don't know.
Well, we've heard those rumors for a while, but and the Knicks will keep coming up in those rumors, and he's never going to end up in New York. I'm pretty sure.
But can you imagine the amount of draft choices, quality ones that Milwaukee could get for Giannis? I mean, that would be off the charts because he's a legitimate superstar. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what team would have the draft choices to give for him, but man, oh man, if you consider what Utah got for Rudy Gobert and Giannis is, I mean, miles ahead of him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely. Zach Edey has had 20-plus point games this season. Early favorite for Rookie of the Year. How about that? The old-fashioned center banging underneath, doing his thing. Listen, he was the player of the year the last year in the championship, the NCAA year that year anyway. He was the player of the year, and he's doing his thing right now. So
I thought the scouts knew what they were doing because I couldn't see the logic on him not being, him waiting in the draft as long as he did. I didn't understand it, but I figured, okay, they've studied the players. Maybe he's not that good of an NBA prospect, but that they seem to miss the boat on him by not taking him earlier.
Yeah, I think it's philosophy, and they don't play that. There is no true. How many true centers are there in the league? There's a few, but not a lot. And I had questions about his athleticism, whether it would translate into the NBA, but he's done fine. And probably we'll see if it catches up because all these leagues are copycat leagues. They're going to have to start putting guys on the court to defend him that can defend him if he's going to continue to play this well. Yeah. And to Rick's last comment, by the way, Andre Jackson, Amsterdam, New York native, right near where we grew up, went to UConn, playing really well with the Bucks.
Yeah, they all come to UConn, Keith, if they want to win. That's where all the college basketball players go. We know that. So anyway, listen, I'm glad to see he did something and got in. There are quite a few of young guys. I try to remember the guy for the Lakers, young kids, 3-point assassin. I'm trying to think of the other young guys that are. I know the Knicks have a young guy. I haven't seen him play yet.
From Marquette. Yeah, they haven't given him a lot of chance, but I think he's a guy for the Knicks who he may be integral to their success later on down the road in this season. They need a guy to be able to come in and hit 3-pointers off the bench, and he'd be that guy. At least he was in college. We'll find out. I like Kolek a lot, actually.
Yeah, and I know that they took Bronny and that other guy. I'm sure they took Bronny first or him first, but he playing for Lakers, and he has come in and contributed off the bench too.
Bronny got sent to the G
League now. Bronny, thankfully, to get some playing time in.
I feel bad. I seriously feel bad for the kid. The kid has done nothing to deserve the nonsense that he's gotten. He didn't pick himself in the first round. He didn't have his father. He didn't make.
No, he was part of it. No, Keith. He could have talked to his family and said, "Look, if I'm a free agent, then I'll sign with the Lakers." Okay. Or he could have stayed in college, said, I wanted to be in college another year. He had a lot to do with the decision. I mean,
Again, but when people throw money at you, what are you going to do? Every single kid is going to make the same decision he made. Everyone.
Are you trying to tell me? Wait. Are you trying to tell me that he has no access to LeBron's money?
Well, I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm not giving all my money to the kids. I want to spend it all before I'm dead.
Well, I don't think LeBron could.
Listen, he wouldn't have to worry about the money. If he stayed in college, the money he'd be getting would be his own money to put away. Money wasn't the issue. Money wasn't the issue. He wanted to go to the NBA, and he could have spoken with his father, saying, "Look, I want on my own. If I don't get drafted, like I said, then sign me. Speak to the Lakers. Then I'll be on the same team." And
no, he should. I've said for a long time he should have gone back to school because we don't know. We may never know how good Bronny could be because he didn't wait long enough to come into the league, and he won't develop enough.
Well, he might develop in the G League. He gets enough playing there. He might be a good player when all is said and done.
I mean,
we may not know how. we may not know how bad Bronny's going to be too. I mean, he may spend his whole. I mean, this might be it for him. I don't know what LeBron's doing next year.
That's been my entire argument with people in Bronny. Even when he was at USC last year, I mean, he missed half the season because of his heart issue. We don't know how good or bad he is. Nobody knows, and again, we may never know what he could have been. If he's bad, he's bad. But
at some point, you're going to have to find out. And if you're the Lakers, the only way you find out, you're going to have to play him down the road, and you're going to have to live with him. And he's either going to, be okay, passable, that you could get by having him in the lineup, or he's not going to be good. And that's where the problem is going to fit in. If your coaching staff, can you disguise them with the other four guys? Can you live with them on the court to make LeBron happy? And let's be honest, if LeBron left the Lakers in a couple of years, what are the chances of Bronny still sticking on the team? Chances are they're going to move on from Bronny unless Bronny, actually is a good player.
So Keith, I know you got an interview. Well, maybe have an interview.
No interview this week because we've been busy and haven't been able to really track people down. So we got to get back on the stick there. But we got our Friday rant show, which went kind of well last time we did it. So it's going to be everybody's chance to come in and give their rant for a few minutes. I sent out some links today, and we'll see what happens. We'll have some fun. By the way, Mac, I've been trying to share the show, and for whatever reason, Facebook's keeps telling me we can't connect. So
I see. I've seen that, and I think. Don't have me on again because I think I made Ralph Williams mad because I went right after he went on. I said totally opposite of what he said. So.
All right, you can pop in. We're happy to have you pop in.
I mean, Ralph. I forget. I don't even remember what the subject was, but I know I totally.
He's a big Steeler guy, a Pittsburgh guy.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, Keith. I'll let you go, and you have a great show. Catch him right here on Roku right after us. On the Friday show with Keith Angle, not interview, but he's going to let the people come on. And
it's still one-on-one with Keith Angle, but the interviews are with the fans, with the viewers.
So one-on-ones with Keith Angle.
One-on-ones, yes. It's just like work. I'm having a bunch of one-on-ones here.
There you go. Keith Angle, the Reverend, popping out. Keith, thanks for joining us this Friday, buddy.
See you guys Sunday.
Take care. Yeah. So there you go, folks. Keith Angle, the Reverend, as we've been calling him lately, preaching the words of the college sports. So, Jack, I got one more thing to cover with you really quick. Just read, I've been reading that there's going to be a new women's professional baseball league start up in 2006 with 6 teams. So that's not even really a league. I mean, you have 10 teams or you can break them up. I mean, 3 teams in one league. Well, it's not even a league. It's 6 teams. They're looking for a network sponsor, more they're going to be looking for a sponsor. I guarantee you, I think it is ESPN will pick them up. ESPN has a lot of money. They have their own betting app. I mean, that's how rich ESPN is. If imagine us having a betting app and covering bets, we couldn't do that. So anyway, maybe ESPN picks them up. They haven't played since 1954, this league, Jack.
Yeah, it'll be a novelty in the beginning, but these new sports leagues, I mean, they don't go anywhere because there's so much competition. I mean, are people going to watch a women's league instead of, the men's games that are going on that you could catch if it's not your home team, the various other, teams. And they tried that at football, USFL, XFL, so on. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. It just doesn't go anywhere. Even though the USFL years ago in the 80s made a little bit of a buzz for a moment. It's good to fill in for programming. And if they get a small fan base that likes what they're doing, that's great. But if you look at every other sport out there, not only team sports, you have tennis, you have golf, you have boxing, you have this, you have that. It gets oversaturated. This isn't to say that they shouldn't do it. Good luck to them. I like the concept, actually, and I hope somehow it does take off because you never know what could happen. But look at the WNBA. Not until this year when Caitlin Clark burst onto the scene did they have really the type of following that you would have like hoped they'd have as far as TV ratings go?
Yeah, yeah, and they still lost money. I mean, it's a tough market. It's tough.
Tough
It's
market, tough.
very tough. A real couple of quick things about it. A Japanese women's pitcher is one of the things that are supposed to be the best women's pitcher in Japan, are one of the ones putting this together. And it'll be interesting. The old league was in the Midwest. And we're going to talk more about this on the Sports Memory Show tomorrow at a.m. Join us there, as Jays will be talking about Bill Walton. Jack will be talking a little bit of history of black boxing way back when. I mean, Jack's going way back in the cover. Yes.
Yeah, back in the
yes.
before the last century, at the turn of the last.
Well,